Hello, how are you doing? This is Craig Beck from StopDrinkingExpert.com, the website that helps people escape the loop of problem drinking without any of the usual nonsense. No willpower, no gimmicks, no embarrassing meetings, no expensive rehab, no dangerous medication, just common sense, easy to apply logic. So if that sounds good to you, go and check out the website right now, www.stopdrinkingexpert.com. You'll find lots of free advice there. The blog is there at the bottom of the page as well. Check out that. And also, if you're serious about this, sign up for today's free quit drinking webinar. So point number one, apologies. Sorry, there was no video last week. I know I'm normally pretty consistent. Every Wednesday, new video. Wasn't one last week. Don't worry. I'm not dead. I'm alive. But I was on vacation. I took my parents to New York for 4 days, and we had a very nice time. In fact, my parents, both in their mid-70s now, have never turned left on an aeroplane. Just come from that generation of, counting every penny, looking after the pounds and all that sort of stuff. Never really treated themselves to traveling first class or business class or anything like that. Always flown economy, even from the UK to Australia and back economy. So I decided to treat them and took them to New York with British Airways first class. There they are. As hang on a minute, let's see if I can. Yeah, there's my mum enjoying her first class seat. There's my dad stretching out, enjoying himself. So they had a very good time. We did all the touristy stuff. We went to Central Park. We went to the 9/11 museum and memoriam. We saw Moulin Rouge, the musical. We did all the stuff. So apologies, there was no video, but that's why. So this week, I want to talk about how alcohol changes people, because it does. And that's a lot of the reason why alcohol destroys relationships, because often it's normally one person in the partnership that causes the problem. It's very rare that you both people develop this alcoholic trait together. Normally, there's one wounded party and one person who's going down the alcohol path. And part of the reason there is such huge damage caused to relationships is because the person you married or the person you originally met ceases to exist when they're drunk. And as they become more and more dependent on alcohol and more they are intoxicated, you get less and less of the original person that you fell in love with. And you're left with this completely different schizophrenic version of your husband or your wife. And it's not generally a very nice version. You get a lot more of the bad and a lot less of the good of their character. So what's going on? Why is this happening? And, a lot of people simplify this and they say, well, when you see someone drunk, you will see their true character. If they're mean and they're nasty when they're drunk, then that's who they are at their core. If they're fun and giggly and bubbly when they're drunk, then that's who they are at their core. And it's easy to believe that because, you can analyze it and say, well, they haven't got their shields up. They're actually revealing their true self. And so they must be really like that. And I think that's an oversimplification. I think this is what happens. Alcohol just removes the filters. And so you get a bit of Tourette's, you get a bit of lower emotional intelligence, and you say the things that you would not normally say. And we all think bad things. We all think negative things, even about people we love and care about. We're often thinking negatively, but we don't say it because there is a filter, because we understand, we are emotionally intelligent enough to understand that if we say this thing that we're thinking, while it might actually be in their interests, it will hurt them, it will cause them pain, and we love them, and we don't want that to happen. So you may be with your best friend, you've known him or her for 30 years, and they're telling you this story, and you're thinking, God, this is boring. Oh, this is the dullest story I've ever heard. But you don't say that, do you? You sit there and you smile and you nod and you laugh in the right places. Why? Because you care about them, because your filters are in place, because you have emotional intelligence. Now, when you drink alcohol, you lose all of that. Alcohol doesn't make people funny. It doesn't make people mean. It doesn't make people any of those things. It makes people stupid. That's what it does. Alcohol steals upwards of 30 to 50% of your intelligence. So it's not that when you're drunk, your true mean character comes out. It's just that you haven't got the emotional intelligence anymore to understand that saying this thing is hurtful. And so you just blurt it out. You're not funny. You're not interesting. You're boring. You say it because there's no filter. And that's a problem if you're talking to people who aren't also drunk, because not many people will sit and analyze the situation and say, oh, okay, well, he's lost 30% of his intelligence. I've got to discount what he just said, because most people will just think asshole, right? So that's what alcohol does. That's how it changes you as a person. It makes you less emotionally intelligent and less IQ intelligent as well. And that's a problem, because it means that you're quite often going to take the douchebag route. Nobody wants to be around people like that. And the problem here is that you've established relationships with people. You have friends, you have a partner, you have a husband or a wife or a boyfriend or a girlfriend who all probably knew you before alcohol got a hold of you. And living with someone with a drinking problem is extremely painful, because it's almost like living with someone who's got dementia. It's like you can still see the person in front of you, but you've lost their character, you've lost their kindness, you've lost their sense of fun. And not many people vocalize this, but if you're the partner of an alcoholic, it's very much a grieving process. There will be times when you refuse to accept it. There'll be times when you're in denial about it. There'll be times when you're angry. There'll be times when you're depressed. And there has to come this moment of acceptance where you say, I've lost that person. They've gone for good, and I'm never going to get them back. And to those people, who reach out to me and say, I'm living with an alcoholic husband, I'm living with an alcoholic wife, what do I do? My advice is always the same. Number one rule, and the overriding rule, is you look after yourself first. You do not lower your standards. You do not allow yourself to be manipulated by the person that your husband or your wife has become. You do not enable their drinking. You protect yourself. You protect your own physical and mental health and your own safety. That is paramount. If you are absolutely depressed, suicidal because of the state of your life, because of the problem drinker in your life, then you owe it to yourself to get out of that situation, to remove yourself from the toxic environment. As hard as it will be, as hurtful as it will be to the other person, you have to protect yourself first, because you are no longer protecting the person that you originally met. If that person you're with refuses to stop drinking, you are now protecting a narcissistic, sociopathic version of the person that you originally met. And it's as stark as that. You're never going to be able to force these people to quit drinking. You're never going to be able to strong arm them or trick them into stop drinking. It has always got to be the decision of the drinker. Anything else will fail. There's no way. You can't drop them off at rehab and collect them in a month and expect they'll be fixed. It's not going to work. The initial spark on this journey to sobriety begins with the individual. So that's why I say, look, forget everything else. Number one, love yourself, respect yourself, protect yourself. That's it. All right. So alcohol changes people, and it's never a good thing. And it's very hard to watch. It's very hard to deal with. But if you're the problem drinker and you've been in this situation for years, and for some people decades, ask yourself honestly, how good is my relationship? What is the quality of my marriage? Are we in love? Do we still make each other laugh? Do we still have date nights? Are we still excited to see each other when we're away for a few days? How do you feel when you walk through the door on an evening and you see your wife there or you see your husband there? How do you feel about them? Be honest about that. And if it's not a good thing, if you think, we're somewhere between indifferent and hostile, if alcohol's in your life, I'm telling you, you remove the alcohol, your relationship gets better. Because the person that your partner fell in love with comes home for the first time in years, for the first time in decades. Honestly, I've seen this so many times. Marriages and partnerships that have been falling apart, close to breakup, healing, and people falling back in love with each other just because the attractively packaged poison was removed from their life. So if you're on the fence, if you're thinking, I want to quit drinking, but I can't imagine my life without alcohol, trust me on this, everything's going to get better for you. And more than anything, your relationships are going to get better. Because that wonderful person that your friends love and your wife and your husband love is coming home for the first time in years. Any questions, email me. If you have any confusion about this process of getting sober, email me via the website, stopdrinkingexpert.com. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next episode of the Happy Sober podcast.